I'm Ken Anderson with Profoam. Today I'm going over the PX-7 gun from PMC. This is a mechanical purge gun, so it has a little valving rod right here that mechanically purges the chemical at the end of each trigger pull. That makes this very different from the AP2, AP3, fusion gun, P2 gun, things like that. Those are all air purge guns, so air purges the chemical out. A mechanical purge gun gives us the ability to spray a fan pattern pretty reliably. So this is a good gun because it'll cut your spray time down, save you a lot of time, make your spray more consistent, go a lot faster, things like that. So it's a really good gun for that. And that's the way this one is set up for spraying. You may have a gun that's set up for pouring, so you need a few different parts, but we're going to go over it for the spray. So a couple things you're going to need to do this. One is you will need to have an air line that is charged to take the gun apart all the way. You'll also need to get all the chemical out of the inside, the iso and the resin. So to do that, we can use a flush pot. This we can hook up to the bottom of the gun. It's pressurized, and we can spray solvent through it. That'll purge all the iso and resin out of it, just leaving the solvent. Another way we can do that is as we take it apart, take the sides out, so forth, we can use like a brake cleaner and get in there and spray each side out before continuing on to the next step to get all those chemicals out. If we don't do that, the iso and resin will come together inside the gun and turn into foam, and then we got more cleaning to do. So nobody wants that. So let's get started. This gun is already dry inside, so I don't really have to worry about it getting all those chemicals out. They're already out. So here I'm going to start by taking the side off, side screw. And we'll see our screen and our check valve. The check valve keeps fluid from going backwards and maintaining it. If you have a crossover, it keeps it inside the gun instead of letting it go back into your hoses. Now that check valve has to be clean. It's just a spring-loaded pin in a plastic seat. If it's not clean right inside here, it's not going to function properly and can let fluid go backwards. So we want to make sure we get that clean. And then our screen, make sure it's clean, and our side screw. So clean all that stuff out. We're good there. If you are using the brake cleaner, you'd want to get in here and really flush that out, including back inside that hole that's in there, to get all that chemical out of there. Then we'll move on to the next side. Here's our A side. Again, screen and check valve. Now, on this check valve, I don't know if you can really see it, but it's pretty dirty in there, right inside there. This will not function properly. It won't keep the fluid from going backwards. You can take these apart. You can hold this piece right here. You can unthread the back. Be careful you don't lose that spring. And then you can really get that and clean that all up real well. And then clean up that seat. If they're too bad, just replace them. It's not worth having a crossover because you didn't get it clean enough. Once that's done, just put it back together. There we go. Okay, again, if you're using the brake cleaner to clean it, flush that side out now too. All the way back inside there. Now we're going to move up to the front of the gun. Here's our air cap. This little piece in the center is called our PCD, which stands for Pattern Control Disc. This piece is our PCD retainer. So we're going to take off that PCD retainer. Then our PCD is right there. Now, if your gun is dirty, that'll probably be stuck on there fairly well. So you take just a pair of pliers and gently grab on the flats and pull it off. This O-ring goes in the back of the PCD retainer right there. Okay. Next is our front packing retainer. That's this nut here. That's going to be a 5/8 wrench. I suggest you use a box wrench. The hex is very thin. If you slip off it, you're going to round it off and you have to replace it. Using a box wrench and hold it tight against the face. We won't damage it that way. unthread this, but this is a press fit onto the valving rod, so it's not going to come off real easy. So once I have it unthreaded, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my air line and plug it in, and then just pull the trigger. When I release the trigger, it'll pop out. There we go. Okay, so here I have my front packing retainer and the front packing itself. The front packing is a little white piece of plastic, and it's pushed in there pretty hard. So if you need to replace it, just push it from this end, it'll pop out the back. The module, this is where the mixing actually takes place, and it fits right against the back of that PCD, or the front packing. There's tiny little holes in there. You want to re-drill those holes every day to clean them up. Otherwise the gun's not going to function well the next day. And so that kind of goes as a little package there. It fits inside the gun. And the valving rod goes right up through those. And it has to be a tight fit to seal. So expect it to be tight. So that's how I get it off of there. Next, back here, we have our rear packing. I'll just loosen that up a little bit. And that is a 1/2-inch wrench. Okay. Then I want to take my valving rod out. To do that, take the safety off the back. I'll take my 5/16 nut driver and I'll unthread it. That's probably pretty good. Now, to get it out of there, I still have my air connected. I'm going to trigger it. And there it is. So now I can take my pliers, grab on the end of that, and pull that out the back. And you want to make sure that that is all clean as well. If not, take a little bit of steel wool and just gently rub it down, and that'll clean that up. From there, we go ahead and take the fluid head off the front. One bolt on top. There's our fluid head. That rear packing I talked about, it's a little white plastic bushing right inside there. That's what keeps fluid from coming out the back when the valving rod is through. And it acts like a compression fitting. So the more I tighten this, the tighter that squeezes on the valving rod. There it is. So that's important to know, because when I'm assembling it, I just want to put that, let's say I put a new rear packing in. I'm just going to turn this down until I feel some decent resistance, and that's it. I don't crank it down and be tight, or I'll just crush that thing. So if I see any leaking out the back, I'm just going to take my little 1/2-inch wrench and just snug it up just a little bit at a time until it stops leaking. If it doesn't stop leaking, you need to replace that rear packing. Okay, we'll leave that somewhat loose for now. So that's how we get it apart. Clean everything up really, really well inside. Get all the foam out of there, out of the bottom, out of the front. Be careful. These threads are very, very fine threads. They can get fairly easily damaged, so be very careful with those. For reassembly, basically reverse order. Put the fluid head back on. Snug that up pretty good. Okay. Put our valving rod back in, and we'll push that forward with the 5/16 nut driver and thread it in. Okay. Next, we want to put these back on. So I'm going to start that right there, and then I'm going to pull the trigger, and that will allow me to thread that in. Just put it in finger tight, release the trigger. I can see the tip of my valving rod right there. 5/16 wrench, just snug that back up. Okay. At this point, I also want to undo this nut and take my 5/8 wrench and turn this brass piece. If you're looking at it from this direction, it'd be clockwise. about 3 or 4 flats. That pulls the valving rod back in. I'm going to show you why that's so important. We need to set the valving rod to the correct distance. Inside the back of our PCD, there's a small little hole in there that is the same shape as the tip of the valving rod. We need the valving rod to come up and just barely touch that PCD. If it's back too far and leaves a gap, it'll fill with foam and act like a glue, and that valving rod will stick. Won't be able to come back and forth. If it goes too far and just slams the back of this, it'll tear the front open. So I'm going to show you how to set the valving rod to the right distance, and that's part of it, is moving that back to start with. Next, I'll put my PCD on and my PCD retainer. And I'll snug that up. And then I will use my 3/8 wrench to just align the PCD to where I want it. I usually have mine horizontal because that's the way I like to spray. Right there. Okay. Reassemble my side seals, the screens, the screen screws. That's the A side. My B side. Okay. Now I'm going to go set my valving rod. I'll show you how to do that. Right now I can see a gap between the valving rod and the back of the PCD. There's a little shadow in there, so I know there's a gap. With the air plugged in, I have to have air on to do this. I'm going to use my 5/8 wrench, and now I'm going to move that brass piece back. I'm watching up here as I'm turning back here. I feel resistance on the wrench, and as soon as it loses that resistance, I know that's because the valving rod is touching the inside of the PCD. There it is. So it broke loose, and I just come back till I feel that resistance just a little bit. Valving rod is set. The air cap on, the spring, and the safety, and I should be back in business. So to clean this gun, you want to clean this gun every day that you spray, and that should only take 15-20 minutes at the end of the day. Make sure you drill out those holes for the module, clean all the fluid out of here, clean your valving rod off, adjust your valving rod to the PCD, and you should be good to go.